what I hear from Ramky, it took time because their sort of status quo was threatened a little bit. Who is this guy who's not played cricket to tell us?
That's what I think. The legends would have a little problem. I would think, not just Indians.
See, whatever the analysts sort of had plans for Dhoni, Dhoni anyway had those plans by himself.
Natural computer.
There are guys like Chris Gayle who wasn't so interested in the data, but he would come and ask, okay, who are the bowlers and when would they bowl? Okay, this is the bowler I'll try and play out, and this is the bowler I'll try and hit.
It's in the air. It's a 6.
Welcome to Century of Stories Cricket. I am one of the greatest Indian batsmen ever to play the game professionally. And with me today is arguably one of the most well-known analysts. I don't think he likes that. I'd like to call him Data Man. As in, if he was an Avenger, he'd be called Data Man. Not Date a Man, but Data Man. That would be the right word for him. One of the early birds who brought data and analysis into cricket, into sport. Sankar Rajgopal. I've just been told that he likes to go by the name Sankey. I'm just kidding. I have no idea. I've just made that up. But he's here to tell us a little bit about how analysis fuels IPL teams' title pursuits. That'll be the main point of the show, to make it sound like a PhD that we're doing.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I want to get back to the basics, which is how did it all start? How did we get into... Suddenly, cricket world just transformed itself into this whole thing where IT and tech was so important. You're studying every little movement, every little angle, every degree. You know, I mean, it's another science altogether from what I remember in the 80s growing up, where Kapil Dev once masterfully said, bat well, bowl well, field well, we win. So that seems to have gone a little bit out of the window.
It changed a little bit,
Yeah.
Pleasure being here. Just as you said, Cyrus, it wasn't always like that. I think initially, at least for the Indian context, there's this chap called Ramky, who in 2003...
Full name? Ramakrishna.
Ramakrishna. So Ramky was basically India's first video analyst. He was not a data analyst, he was a video analyst. This chap used to record matches on VHS tapes and give it to John Wright. John Wright was the coach back then. So because he had tapes, we could pause and play batters' footage, bowlers' footage. They could analyze the game a lot better. Then the coaches realized that, there's a lot of value in this. So they got cameras into the nets and they started analyzing their own players. If somebody is going through bad form, etc., you could just see them in the nets.
They would shoot the entire net practice.
Shoot the entire net practice. Keep the camera in front where the umpire would stand. Keep the camera there and just shoot like hours and hours of footage. Then they realized, okay, you can actually mine this data. You can sort of, for every ball bowled, you can say, okay, who's the bowler? What is the batter going to do? What is the shot he's playing? Where is the ball pitched? Who's a non-striker, etc. So the data points now, Cyrus, has moved from 20 odd back then to about 50 plus data points. So with all of this, you can pretty much slice and dice the game as much as possible. So this evolution has taken a lot of time. I think cricket is maybe one of the last adopters of...
What are you saying?
Yeah, I mean...
Which of the sports has started? American sports, I think.
American sports. Because they play many matches over a season and it's more than 100 years. So it's prime for data. And actually cricket is prime for data because every ball is an event.
Stop-start sport is the best, I would think.
Exactly. Like football, hockey, etc. It's more difficult to analyze.
Yeah, you don't have those breaks where you can go back into it sort of with the knowledge in your head.
Exactly.
And use it,
But cricket, because every ball is an event, you can like... remove one ball from the other and actually analyze each ball as is. So what was in the forefront of data analytics was baseball. Because baseball, they played multiple matches in a season and it's more than 100 years. So marginal gains were sort of looked at with data. Baseball and cricket have similarities. Both are stop-start games. Right. Every ball is an event. Baseball, every pitch is an event. So cricket was one of the later sports to pick it up, but it is prime for it. Because, as a producer was telling us earlier, because the test matches were the primary sort of format back then.
True.
There's in test matches just excessive stuff happening, and there's not so much.
How long is the baseball game? Actually, 2.5 hours, somewhere there.
3 hours, I guess.
3 hours max. Yeah. And then you have a 5-day test match. If you play all 5 days and there's a draw, look at the kind of data you're compiling.
And we spoke about VHS tapes. How many tapes do you need?
Imagine that analyst, man. His fingers will go. Press pause, rewind 2 seconds, press it again.
So I think, and in test matches, because there was a standard way to bowl, right? Like spinners bowl a good length, bowlers bowl a good length, top of off, etc. What was there to analyze as much also? biomechanics, etc., came in much later, where you had to measure fitness, etc. So I think it's a combination of limited overs cricket becoming bigger, commercial interest, etc., and I think advent of T20 obviously had a big role to play in data being used as much as it is today.
So we did embrace it where in the 90s?
I think early 2000s.
Early 2000s, we started looking at it. And what would be the kind of stuff that you would actually look at in those days? You're looking at how the batsman is getting dismissed. What are the basic, easy ones?
Yeah, basically a batter's strengths, weaknesses, and possibly where he hits the ball, etc., so that you can set the
Place
field.
the field, yeah.
Yeah, and similarly for bowlers, what are the kind of balls that he generally bowls? What are the variations that he might have? When does he bowl a bouncer? Those kind of things. So the batter knows exactly what he needs to expect, and a bowler knows, okay, you stay out of this area for this guy.
We're talking about early 2000s, late 90s.
Yeah.
Did they accept all this knowledge, or they were like, no, boss, I'll do it my way?
Yeah, I think there was.
I want some gossip. I want some names. I want to know who did, who didn't.
I wouldn't know, but from what I
For
hear,
the sake of ratings, give me two.
yeah, from
How
what
was
I
Sachin?
what I hear from Ramky,
Yeah.
it took time because their sort of status quo was threatened a little bit. Who is this guy who's not played cricket to tell us? Yeah,
The legends would have a little problem, I would think, not just Indians, all across the world.
Yeah.
If you're telling the guy, this is how you're going to bat now.
correct.
I mean, you can't tell a.
So that's what analysts even struggle with even today.
Yeah.
But the acceptance is a little more. It's a little more. I must admit.
Really?
But I think where the turning point happens is when a player knows something that this chap has given me has helped them do something. Then there is acceptance. So I think
As in a setup against a certain batsman works and
setup
the trap sort of works because you followed the
you,
data.
you followed
everyone's
something
on
and
the offside.
they won't
Yeah.
admit it initially, but then be like, okay, I think this has helped me, so you sort of accept it. Once that happens, I think Viru became one of the investors in sports mechanics, which he went on to found.
Are you serious?
Later, yeah.
Wow.
So Ramky later founded sports mechanics, where I think Sachin and Viru were sort of stakeholders.
Sharp boy. So he left Sehwag.
So
left
these
the-
two are the guys probably who accepted data more than the others.
But that's big because you two giants of the team accepted,
Correct.
then the rest will. It's difficult for them not to follow.
Most people who are analysts today actually all started from the school of Ramky, including myself.
Oh.
So we all,
Shall we pause for 2 seconds and show respect?
yes, I think the man deserves it.
We can use reverb. Ramky.
We all started there, and there because he was one of the first people to start all this, most of the teams were under him. So basically we had back-end analysts for each of these teams, and that's what I did. So
What is a back-end analyst exactly? As in
somebody who helps the main analyst on the ground and tells him if there are any patterns that they notice. For example,
there's the front who
Yeah.
talks with the team and interacts with them, who doesn't really do the
it's like
spade work. The spade work is done by others.
It's like the intern here, and then they need to grow into somebody
you know
else.
who runs the company.
Finally all replaced by AI 1.0. So anyway, so
This is not a nice joke.
Yeah.
This is too when comedy is true.
Dark
it's
humor.
Yeah, it's really dark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on. Sorry.
So things like Mike Hussey cuts the ball in the air a lot. So have maybe Pollard, the tallest bowler, fielder,
Yeah. And gully.
at point or whatever.
Oh.
And he, I think, famously dropped 4 catches of Mike Hussey
Are you serious?
in one match. Yeah.
In one match?
Yeah.
After they set it up?
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful story.
Yeah. So these kind of things happen. So the job of a
Ramky
backend.
and company are tearing their hair when the
No,
fourth
I
catch
think
goes down.
I think they work for both teams, so that is fine. So it's like one hand this and the other hand going like that.
So you win both ways.
Yeah, you win both.
Either
ways.
way, rather. Yeah.
So most teams had a back-end analyst who would help the main analyst, because the main analyst on the road, they are interacting with the coaches, running team meetings, etc. So somebody had to make, these small video capsules, some data reports, etc. of what went wrong, what we can do right, etc. And that was given to them. So that was the job of a back-end analyst, which I did.
Do you remember any incidents there where your analysis was used and it made a difference?
No, I think this Hussey one.
So that was yours?
Yeah, that was mine. Yeah.
That he cuts a lot in the air.
Cuts a lot in the air, and it helps having a good fielder.
So
at
6'5" Pollard was put there and then he puts it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 times. Yeah.
4 times. So you'll never forget that.
Yeah.
You never forget your early days, especially, right? Then you do a lot more work after that. CSK, any stories?
Dhoni, see, whatever the analysts sort of had plans for Dhoni anyway had those plans by himself.
Natural computer.
Natural computer. So people talk about matchups and all that. Dhoni was one of the first people to bowl Ashwin, a very young Ashwin, to Chris Gayle.
Right.
in the first over.
First over, yeah.
So matchups became
On his own, huh? This is not a data given to him.
This is not data given to him. He just figured a young Ashwin.
And this is at Chepauk.
This is at Chepauk. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Like he would look
Not
at the
necessarily
conditions.
outside, yeah.
He would look at the conditions and he would be like,
No, the
okay.
fact that he was doing all this, because there's a multitasking sort of layers of thinking, huh?
Correct. So, I mean, we call it matchups today, and it's a fancy word and all. Dhoni was doing it back in the day, where he would use wide, slower balls in the death, etc. People just generally bowl at the stumps, right?
Yeah.
So things like bowling to one side of the wicket. Who are the kind of bowlers
Also,
who
it is
suit?
psychological for Chris Gayle, right? Getting the spinner on, going away from him, generally speaking, in his brain, in his head.
Yeah, and for him, he's like, who's this rookie guy bowling at me, and then there's an ego tussle there, and Dhoni sort of looks at all of those things, right? How would Gayle perceive a young Ashwin bowling at him? And Gayle may not defend him, even though he's very famous for defending the first 2 overs.
Yeah.
He hunts his prey. He sort of goes slowly and then eats them up later, right?
Right.
But he saw an Ashwin and sort of, I think, I don't know if it was a defense
Ego thing also, no? I think
ego
off
thing.
spinners bowling to me in the first over, I'm Chris Gayle. Huh.
Correct. So those sort of things. So I think data was not that there was lack of data. Dhoni had a brain which already had the data in him.
This is now a little challenging. So you have the odd cricketer here and there. I'm sure there are not too many of them like Dhoni, but they're pretty capable.
Yeah.
Street smart enough to analyze exactly what you spend hours doing. You brought in the off spinner against the left hander, taking the pace off the ball, blah blah blah. All these things factored in Chepauk.
I think it also helps that you're a wicketkeeper, right? You see the game from a different perspective, and you've done that most of your life through like local cricket, etc. So all of that gets computed
He's
in.
always preferred the spinners, from what I remember. In any case,
Yeah. He's a great spinners captain. He's a great captain,
Yeah.
but he's an excellent spinners captain.
Yeah, I would think so. I don't think Virat would be the other way, more interest in the seam bowlers. And pushing them also.
Correct.
But that's a subject for another day. We'll get back to this. So your contributions they were there, but you were like a backbencher at that point.
Yeah.
Then you moved on to Punjab, is it?
Yeah. Then I
Where
worked.
you had a glorious career of 40, 50 odd years.
Yeah. Then I worked in. I moved on to the broadcast side of things, where broadcast was missing the analytics piece.
So what we see, what they show us.
Yeah, what they show. Today, if you see, there's a big ticker there with stats and batters in power play and this guy versus off spin, etc. So I was guilty of starting all that in broadcast.
So tell the public the truth, right? Because the cricketer looks like a real professor when he presents it, but he's relied on you. Because it looks like he's just, he makes the point that he likes to play on the offside, he likes to play between this arc, etc., etc. But all that's fed by you.
Yeah, there is a big team, not me, there's a huge team that sort of primes the commentators, briefs them of what the stories for a match is, what could you expect, strengths of a batter, weakness of a batter. And then there's a producer who telling them, listen, this stat is coming up.
Use it.
Use this. And they sort of voice it out.
Do any of the legends, don't take names, I understand, but do they give trouble? Because I know the odd experienced cricketer might give trouble and say, I don't want your information.
Yeah, it's possible. Just like how data acceptance took time in the analytics circles within the teams, I think even in broadcast it took a little time where the expertise of a cricketer or legend was questioned by data. But eventually they also realized that it gives them a great storytelling tool. How much will you say Virat Kohli is a great player? After a point, you can say he's the best player, after first 10 balls.
Yeah.
He's the best player.
Best chaser in the game.
Best chaser in the game.
Which he probably
once he's set, he has the most, he converts 50s to 100s the most. Whatever. Data can give you all these different stories when they also realize, okay, this is not bad. Anyway, I worked for Star Sports for a few years. Then I moved to, while I was there, we did an analytics feed for the first time called the Dugout feed in Star Sports. I don't know if your viewers will know this, where Dean Jones, Scott Styris, and a few others were part of a feed where it was just analytics. So it was pitch maps, beehives. We had a little field pod there where Scott Styris is changing the field every now and then, saying
this is for the cricket nerd now.
This is for the cricket
nerd. You really like your game because you're dissecting it from different angles. Yeah.
But it was great fun because the analytics team completely ran that feed and it was on Star Sports Select. So I knew Anil from working in the dugout.
Right.
And when Anil then became the coach for Punjab, we had a conversation then.
That's how you got the thing.
I started working.
And Anil was clearly, even while playing cricket, as a guy who he wanted to know the background, the references. He was a thinking bowler, literally.
Excellent person to work with because he was extremely data savvy in general as a person. He looked at data, he knew the gut feel of what the game, where the game was, and then sort of mix both and then give his sort of comments.
So he roped you in.
He roped me in, and he roped an entire sort of team in.
So give us some examples of the analysis and the in-depth stuff that was done there. Since that's where you hold your own now.
Yeah, correct. So because we inherited a team, what I mean by that is a team which was with Mike Hesson was given to him, and we didn't have a big auction, which means you couldn't change too much. In a small auction, you can maybe buy a couple of players here and there. So we are looking at marginal gains of what we could do to make our team better. So I'll give you a couple of examples. One is Mohammad Shami. Mohammad Shami was what we call a top and tail bowler. A top and tail bowler is somebody who bowls
opening overs,
2 in the power play and 2 at the death. The analysis basically said that Shami's effectiveness in the death is not as much, and there is also analysis telling us that if you take an opener's wicket, it basically amounts to about 12 runs. So the value of a wicket is much more up top. The bigger point, Cyrus, is that power play wickets mean much more than wickets at the death. Because death may, after a point, a wicket is like a dot ball only. It doesn't mean more than that. Because the
somebody else comes in and
the innings is ending. So we made Shami a power play bowler. Basically, you bowl 3 or 4 in the beginning, which later on he went on to Gujarat and he did the same thing, and I think probably does the same for SRH now. So sort of changing roles a little bit from our current players and knowing what to do with them. We did a funny thing with Chris Gale, where because KL and Mayank, 2 best friends from Karnataka,
boys,
we wanted them to open. So what we did was Chris Gale, the famous opener,
greatest
T20
opener
superstar,
in T20 game.
We batted him at number 3, and I'll tell you the reasons for that.
He was okay with it?
He wasn't, but he was okay with the logic of it. But he was not very happy with it. And then guys like Nicholas Pooran, who are finishers, we made them middle order batters. So small marginal gains that could.
But let's go back again. I want to argue this point if you don't mind. I know they were best friends and they have great chemistry and all that. And definitely in a 4-day game, I would say yes. But why would you not have Chris Gale at the top, left, right, firstly, as against right? And then he's Chris Gale. He's a 1 in a million sort of T20 batsman.
Yeah, but you're looking at the Chris Gale of his prime. What was happening then was T20 game was changing where you could not afford to play out 2 overs in the beginning. So Chris had a method to whatever. I think his reflexes.
He saw himself in with the first few deliveries, that's fair, but he did that in his prime as well.
He did that in his prime as well, but eventually I think the pace of the game seemed to get to him. And we couldn't afford that anymore.
So the strike rate had dropped?
Had dropped, yeah. There was enough indication that...
You were sure that Mayank and KL together would give you possibly a better strike rate than him and one of them together?
We were looking at KL and Mayank and Chris at 3, or KL and Gale and Mayank at 3, what would give us more runs? And it seemed to suggest that Chris at 3 would give us more runs. And there's another reason to it, Cyrus. If Chris Gale is in the middle order, and let's say you are another opposition captain, and you have a spinner, Chahal or Krunal Pandya or guys like that, you see Chris Gale there, will you bowl a spinner to him? We are also trying to mess with the other captains' like bowling plans. You're trying to like sort of screw with that a little bit to enable all this. So there was some method to it. It wasn't.
Did it work?
I think it did. So the issue was that because we had Sheldon Cottrell, Chris Jordan, Maxwell and Pooran, we couldn't play Chris in the team, and plus he was sick in the first season, so he had food poisoning, etc. So we went with that combination. Then there's another story where Sheldon Cottrell, in the first 4 matches, we figured something was off with him. And the data actually seemed to suggest, and our physios told us to look at the data. The data seemed to suggest that every alternate ball, he was bowling a slower ball. And we then figured that his muscles he was not injured. His muscles were not recovering quick enough for him to bowl 2 fast balls at a trot, on the trot.
So his fitness levels had gone down.
His fitness
he was holding back. He would bowl 1 ball and then he would hold back sort of.
Yeah, he would walk back and then his second ball would be slower. I mean, it wasn't consistently happening, but we knew that something was up. Even though we were telling him to bowl fast, with the new ball, he was bowling slightly slower every alternate ball. So we figured it's a fitness thing. We did some scans, etc. And then that's when we had to drop Sheldon, and a very lanky young Arshdeep Singh, who was not in the T20 mix, was pushed in. Who was otherwise a backup player. Once Arshdeep got pushed in, Chris made it to the team, and I think we won like 5 in a row or something like that. But we lost the last 2 games and we couldn't qualify. We missed out by 2 points.
But we'll come back. Nicholas Pooran, you said, was used as a finisher initially.
Yeah.
And he didn't have the kind of reputation he has now. And you pushed him in the middle order on what basis then? Why would you put him neither in the top or at the... Considering he was a bit of a power hitter, why the middle order?
We realized that for him, starting against spin is a good thing. He would like basically smash spin. So
Right.
as much as possible around that 8th, 10th over is a great entry point for him. Which otherwise he was doing as a finisher, which is more 16th, 17th over.
Right.
So pushed him up. Again, trying to get marginal gains, Cyrus, looking at data.
No, it's fair.
Yeah.
It's a T20 game. It's literally, it's all about that. At the end of the day, you're losing by 2 runs and all that. So at the end of the day, these small things are everything.
Absolutely.
I'm presuming. And over a period of time, it may make sense because after 6 matches, you'll see the data. And Nicholas Pooran has given you a better strike rate or whatever and had been an impact player perhaps by playing him at 4 or 5 or whatever he finally landed up.
Yeah, he was mostly at 4. Chris at 3, Pooran at 4. That would generally scare anybody, any bowling attack.
In their prime for sure,
Yeah,
100%.
but we didn't qualify, so all of it is.
So much for data.
Yeah.
Dhoni is right. So leave it to the captain. IDFC first fact. Virender Sehwag, Viro to me, we're friends, in 2006 credited the then Team India analyst Ramkrishnan, better known as Ramky, for his epic knock of 309 against Pakistan in Multan, which was India's first ever triple century, if you remember. Ramakrishnan or Ramky then went on to establish Sports Mechanics, a company that has been associated with multiple IPL teams over the years. Are there any cricketers who come to you thirsty for knowledge and say, boss, can you help me,
Yeah, I think especially bowlers, I think it really helps them. They want to know what the strength of a batter is and where he should be bowling, etc. Arshdeep was actually one of them. He was one of the guys who would basically ask for a batter's a batter against left-arm pacers from other teams and how they've done well to him, well with those batters. So I would send him those videos. I think Nicholas Pooran was one who really liked the data. I remember one instance when, just to give him some confidence, telling him that, dude, your average against Sunrisers is very good. Like, go and smash them or something. He's like, no, it's only 20.1 or something. So he knew his numbers.
And you were lying.
Yeah, I was like, and
to boost his confidence.
Yeah, he caught me lying.
Yeah.
And there are guys like Chris Gayle who wasn't so interested in the data, but he would come and ask, okay, who are the bowlers and when would they bowl? Okay, this guy bowls here. Okay, Akshar Patel is the 5th over. This guy is the 6th over. This guy is 7th over. Okay, this is where this is the bowler I'll try and play out, and this is the bowler I'll try and hit. So he had a method in his own way. So they're all using data in some shape or form.
They're a bit sheepish about it, some of them, because they don't want to admit it or whatever. They do it. But when it's successful, how do they come and give you plaudits and say thank you, bro?
No, we don't get any
Shame on you,
credit.
cricketers.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
This is
if Arshdeep takes 3 wickets and a lot of it is to do with the field placements that he's come up with thanks to you, he won't come and say.
Sometimes they do that. No,
I know. I see them pointing to the draft.
So
that's just a general thing. We're not sure.
Yeah.
Huh.
Could be me.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Or it could be a girlfriend.
Could be anyone.
Things have changed.
Yeah, if they do that, then.
If they do that to you, brother, you've really left an impression. In today's complex financial world, making informed decisions can make a world of a difference to your tax savings. That's why IDFC First Academy offers 36 hours of flexible, interactive content on financial topics with videos, blogs, and quizzes. Oh, plus certification. Equip yourself to make better financial decisions. Visit idfcfirstacademy.com to start your financial education journey today. Okay, let's look at other teams. We've done too much for Punjab. It's almost like they sponsored the show, and that's not fair. Let's look at a couple of others. Let's say RR, for example. Not, except for Shane Warne in the beginning, not too many huge stars. I think Shane Watson after that. But managed to, be there or thereabouts, won the first title, etc. What's their story with data?
Yeah, I think RR are actually called the first Moneyball team of the IPL. All the icon players had gone to one franchise or the other. Sachin was in Bombay, Yuvraj was in Punjab, etc., etc. Then Dhoni was picked up by CSK in the auction. The only team without an icon player was Rajasthan. I think Manoj Badalik spoke to Shane Warne. He said he rejected his calls for a couple of months.
Yeah.
And I think he famously, there's a quote where he says, Australia lost you as a captain. Like, wouldn't it be nice to see you captain another franchise?
It was clear that Manoj was a huge fanboy.
Yeah.
of Shane Warne.
Of Shane Warne. Yeah, I think that helps. And so,
So he tickled his ego. He got interested.
He got
Tried
interested.
to-
He came here,
Hmm.
and then the general philosophy was to not get too many superstar players. Whereas every
This is RR's philosophy or Shane Warne in particular?
I
Nobody
would
knows. Okay.
nobody knows. Yeah, I would because you just look at the players that they've got. Shane Watson was their biggest player.
Yeah.
What happened was they picked up guys like Swapnil
Swapnil.
Asnotkar,
Hmm.
Yusuf Pathan.
Salunke.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Solanki. Then Solanke,
Oh.
was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a Maharashtrian name. No,
Okay.
go ahead.
Sorry. And guys like even Ravindra Jadeja was part of this. So
Yeah.
you see that basically Shane Warne looked for cohesion, guys who can play together and
And play positions also, right?
yeah, role specificity. Whereas if you see the other teams, you look at for example, KKR, they had Brendan McCullum, they had Chris Gale, they had
Ricky Ponting.
Ricky Ponting
Yeah.
and guys like that. So basically, 11 great players may not make a team.
Yeah.
Whereas you have 11 players for 11
Playing
for,
spots, playing position. Yeah.
for each position, for each role. That was the lesson of the first season where a cohesive unit actually made a difference. So Shane Warne then obviously didn't play too much. He had already retired from international cricket.
Right.
They won the first season. IPL he left after 2011.
Shane Warne, yeah.
Shane Warne left after 2011, and therefore they needed to replace somebody with those same skill sets. Zubin Barocha, who was a technical director of RR, identified a 40-something-old Praveen Tambe from the Mumbai circuit
Correct.
to be that person, complete unknown, and basically he knew what job he had to do. A low trajectory bowler, skiddy bowler who would bowl wicket to wicket and do the job. And I think he did the job magnificently.
Yeah.
I mean, he has
And a movie made
Yeah.
from his life in no time.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it clearly worked, right?
So for a couple of seasons, very popular guy as well, huh?
So that was the kind of marginal gains that RR were looking at. They were not looking at.
So they continue to play this position for position thingy.
Yeah.
Not quite the same quality as a Shane Warne, but you're still looking for a leggy, doing somewhat the same stuff somewhat in the same direction. Yeah.
Yeah, same clarity of roles, right? And the fact that it's working and they're doing well means that they have that philosophy sorted. I think IPL also over time, every big auction they've realized that initially batters are going for the most money, and every big auction you've realized that bowlers are actually more valuable because bowlers are the ones who are winning your tournaments.
Right.
So RR were one of the first to sort of identify that factor as well.
Let's talk about scouting. How, when you're looking for different players, how does it help? Give us an example. Examples are the best way to understand how you
Sure,
guys
sure.
operate.
Yeah, Saiz, one good example would be how we scouted Ravi Bishnoi. This is before the Under 19 World Cup where he
Made a name.
Under 19,
Yeah.
you get some exposure, but this is before that. His sort of domestic stats actually were not so great because the Indian players knew how to play him. He's this tiny bowler who predominantly bowls googlies with a bent knee, low trajectory. So all that added up to was that, first of all, it's very hard to hit him because of his low trajectory and batters need to go underneath the ball. And generally in IPL, foreign batters bat in the middle overs. So we kind of figured that a guy with his action, with his low trajectory would work very well. And it seemed to prove to be the case. So Bishnoi was actually bought in the principles of what works in IPL. And
So his actual specialist position was against the foreign batsman,
yes,
where he's a mystery spinner.
Yes.
And his low trajectory makes it difficult because they're not used to that at all.
Correct.
And they're waiting for the ball to go above the eye line. It never happens.
Exactly.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
a fair point.
Yeah.
All that is because of science. But it can work the other way as well, right? Where a mystery spinner or a great player with great statistics suddenly gets brought down to earth because other people can read what's happening with him, and then the performance is dipped. Has that happened as well?
Yeah, correct. I think batters are all the time looking for cues to how to read a bowler. The reason Ajanta Mendes, Rashid Khan, even a Bishnoi is special is because of deception. But once you can pick up cues of how to read them, then the batter has an advantage. Once you know what is coming your way, you're good, right?
So now Ravi Bishnoi can't play the next season because all the foreign people watch this show and they're
Yeah.
going to be like, okay, we know, low trajectory,
Yeah.
ball, coming into the right-hander. Yeah, okay, done.
Correct,
All right.
correct. It's
So,
possible.
Coming
yeah.
back to Rashid Khan, jokes apart, not the best season. We're still in the middle of it, so there are a few matches left. But definitely gone through a bit of a low, and he's always been on a high, not just in IPL, but everywhere.
Yeah, it's also about how batters are playing him. There was a time when you had to attack him because of the number of bowling options.
Right.
But once Rashid Khan becomes a guy where you are just getting 20 or 30 runs off without giving him wickets, then as a batting team, your role has changed, and that's why his numbers may not be as good. That's also a possibility. So I think he's doing the role. He's doing a good role for Gujarat, and I mean, halfway through the season, he seems to be coming to his own. Then I mean, his second half seems to be better than his first.
But no doubt, once the knowledge is out there, a batsman knows how to react to a certain bowler and play him in a certain way. So everybody has a good 1 or 2 seasons, and then it gets a little more difficult for everyone.
No, but Rashid Khan, to be fair, I think it's been what, more than
7, 8,
9 years.
Yeah.
He's still one of the best
But
bowlers.
he's very relevant, but we're just thinking,
Yeah.
is there a dip? And if there's a dip, then what is the reason? Does data cause that dip? Because you can read all these things. Here's where he's bowling to the right-hander. Here's where he's more effective.
Yeah, of course. But I think Rashid, it's not so much about batters reading him. I think it's about the way batters are playing him.
Right.
Rashid, I mean,
Giving him his respect is what you're saying.
there is some, there's some analysis of if he holds a ball like this, it's a googly, etc. But it's just too fast.
Yeah.
His arm speed is too fast. You start looking at all that as a batter, you'll go crazy.
Yeah.
So it's about how they play him and how do you not give him wickets and maybe sort of attack the other bowlers. So it's a mindset of the batter that's changed. But Rashid is too good a bowler to, not have the.
I think he's scouting for Punjab, trying to move him from Gujarat. I think there's obviously something happening in the back rooms we can't tell you. It's all off the record. Before we wrap up, let's look internationally for a second. There's another great example I think you want to tell us offline about England being in the depths of despair after 2015. They were crushed, the Aussie World Cup, and then in 4 years reinvented themselves. And this all goes back to using science.
Correct, absolutely. So I think only when there is absolute chaos will you relook at yourself, right? England went into the World Cup, went into 2015 World Cup. They lost to Bangladesh, who knocked them out in conditions that were more favourable to England, and they had to basically, Andrew Strauss and others had to relook at the way they play cricket. They made Owen Morgan the captain. He embraced data. He got Nathan Lehman, who is an analyst, who he knew from before, to give them a blueprint for how to play the game and what makes ODI teams a winning team and how do you win World Cups. So they had those data points in place to define a philosophy of how they need to play cricket, which was a more aggressive brand of cricket where you constantly put pressure on the bowlers. And with that blueprint, they eventually were vindicated when they won the World Cup, right? With Owen Morgan and
So this entire thing is actually done by the back room. This entire planning that will switch our entire culture in terms of how we're going to approach batting. We're going to be much more swashbuckling, more flamboyant, more aggressive, which they want up to 2015. They played it in a nice format where you
conservative.
You bat well in the first few overs, and the middle overs are played in a certain way, and then the final fling, which is what the blueprint for everyone for the last 30 years.
Correct. Yeah, there was a template there, and I think because of consistent failures, they had to relook at it, and I think that sort of revolution has crept into IPL as well.
But is this the future now? The IPL's science group is almost as important as the playing group on the field, because it has to marry each other and work in tandem. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind.
I think the analysis team will be as big as the coaching staff soon enough. I think Mumbai and Rajasthan have about 10 people who are backroom analysts for them. Other teams are going to follow. And they will have specialized video analysts, they'll have specialized data guys, there'll be specialist guys who do data modeling and things like that.
Is it tough for a guy like Suryavanshi Vaibhav, the young 14-year-old? He breaks in, but everybody's only watching everything about him now, right? And quickly exposing that maybe he can't play the moving ball or the short ball or whatever. Quickly get to that, and then they sort of, attack him at this young age, where perhaps if he was born in the 80s, he'd have had a longer run without anyone, because there was no data.
Yeah, everybody is going to be super analyzed. Vaibhav Suryavanshi, I was looking at analysis yesterday where Abhinav Mukund on Cricinfo was giving this thing of how he raises his bat once the ball pitches and still manages to hit it. So with such a low reaction time, and teams are looking at that, right? And teams are going to be going maybe fuller or shorter to him. So it's cruel on a young guy like him, but maybe the data will also help him improve. He knows exactly what the bowlers might be doing.
Let's just give this tip to all the other teams outside when you're playing against RR. Just keep it really full and the bats high in the air, and hopefully, Graham Gooch famously used to also bat with that, I remember, with the
Yeah.
bat. And I kept thinking, how does he not get out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, Bob Woolmer was one of those guys who used some data where Graham Hick, if you keep him quiet for a long time, I think he said that he flicks in the air
Immediately,
or whatever, and they kept him quiet and they had a fielder for that, and then he.
Yeah.
So that is where instinct actually plays a part. Back before the days of data, where
But
your mind
one
was
minute,
the brain.
When you said Bob Woolmer, I was thinking we should have started with him. Before Ramky, there was Bob Woolmer.
Yeah.
He really embraced
He
it.
embraced
I
it,
mean,
yeah.
we shouldn't leave him out.
Correct, absolutely. Yeah, he was one of the pioneers of.
Remember, he wanted to put the earpiece for Hansi Cornier to talk to him. So
Yeah.
they could, I mean, and that's happened in T20 in a sense, where we use the cricketer to tell you what's going on.
Yeah,
But-
so Nathan Lehman, by the way, so we talk a lot about matchups and all that, where Owen Morgan used him very well as an analyst on the benches, where he told Morgan or suggested to Morgan who's the bowler who needs to bowl to this pair. So they were not color codes, they were numbers.
Right.
I think you'll find some images on the internet where
Oh.
you had coded messages like Morse coded
Wow.
messages where Morgan could look, and if he felt like he wasn't sure who's going to or he would trust his instinct, but if he needed a suggestion from
There'd be a cue.
there would be a cue
Yeah.
where this guy would put two numbers up and Morgan would look and then use that information.
Morgan, naughty boy.
Even in Punjab, we use some colors and all.
You did?
Yeah, we did.
Give us one. We're running out of time, but quickly give us one.
I think Harpreet Brar, when he took 3 wickets,
Spinner,
he made his debut in 2019, but his first wicket was Virat Kohli. His second wicket was Glenn Maxwell, and his third wicket was AB de Villiers.
Wow.
All happened in the same match. Not a bad three wickets to have. So when Virat was batting, we had sent the message of bowling Brar to him, and one thing is that in our team meetings we had also discussed that Virat, once he is a little set after the first 2 overs, he will attack the first ball. So
The first ball of the next over.
the first ball of any over,
Of the new over, yeah.
of the new over, he's going to attack. So Brar knew that. So Brar was the right matchup to him because left arm spin.
Left arm.
And he saw Virat coming and he bowled it short and then he got him bowled. So if you see the delivery, he knew very well Virat was going to
But
attack.
how did you do it off the pitch? Did you send a signal?
Yeah, basically the captain knows who the bowler needs to be, and that was the color coding we did.
Okay, he's not giving me full example here because he has to keep some stories to himself.
yeah.
Ultimately, there's a code of conduct and code of silence that they have to follow as well. But thank you so much, Sankar, for that. The importance of how analysis fuels IPL teams, and not just IPL teams, and international teams as well. Cricket now cannot go forward without data and analysis. It's just, in fact, I think even in schools, even in clubs, everybody who's got a laptop in front of them is going to try the little bit to give you. I'm sure, because it's a very competitive field, right from school cricket all the way up to international cricket.
Yeah, I think more and more data from school level is being collected. And once, I mean, Cyrus, you and I, if we had,
We didn't have.
if we had the data, we
Yeah.
would probably be slightly better at
No,
than
at
what we
St. Xavier's College, our problem is Saumil Kulkarni never turned up. So we had only 10 on the field. And we were playing Kirti College. And we had to call people on a landline. I was the guy with the 50 paisa going in and trying to call, bro, we need one more.
Yeah,
so we had to bat, waiting for the 11th guy to come. So we couldn't even field after winning the toss.
Oh, that is
Such
sad.
was our life. And now you have data, analysis, every little thing, every nook and cranny looked at. But that's the nature of the game. International sport, not just cricket, everywhere, all around the world, even marriage. Use your data wisely. That's it. IDFC FIRST Bank gives us Century of Stories Cricket. And our thanks to Sankar, who's taken time off from a hugely important job for 11 different IPL teams. Well, the
Yeah,
three
he'll
in
get there. He'll get there
It's
soon
not, come on, really? You don't think it will? All right.